Shirley Manson, welcome to the programme.
Thank you very much, Billy Sloan.
It's good to see Garbage back on home soil, and last night, of course, you played a sellout show in your hometown of Edinburgh. Now, this tour is significant because it's the 20th anniversary of version 2.0, which of course came out in 1998. What do you remember about writing and recording that album? Because it was a real kind of game changer for not only yourself, but for Garbage as a band, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, we just come off a huge successful record, and we had some swagger, arguably for the first and last time. But we were full of confidence in riding high, and we knew that we'd been given this incredible opportunity and we didn't want to blow it, and we wanted to build on top of it. And we had a very clear idea of what it was that we wanted to achieve, and we sort of knew roughly how to put that together. I don't know how we did. It's just sometimes you get lucky that way. And we wanted to make forward-thinking pop using a lot of the new technology that had suddenly sort of emerged and became accessible to musicians like us.
And I mean, I know you don't make records particularly to win prizes, but with 4 Grammy nominations and a number one album, it must have been a really special feeling, was it?
It was an incredible feeling, but again, such as the sort of corporate beast that is a major record label, we got a lot of sort of negative response from our record label during the course of that record. It didn't matter if we were selling 35,000 records a week in America. We would be told, well, you're not selling what Alanis is selling. Alanis is selling 55,000 records, and basically they were telling us we were losers. So looking back on it now, it was phenomenally successful, but whilst we were in the midst of that campaign, we just felt we were failing because we were being told we were failing all the time. So it was sort of monstrous in some regard, but also really good for us because it checked everybody's ego. So we never had any ego problems because we were coming from a loser standpoint constantly.
So you're number one in the charts with probably your biggest album of the band's career, and the record company are still not happy.
Correct. And of course that plays a number on you. It played a number on all of us. Like, it was very frustrating because it's like, I don't know what more you want from us. We've given you a record that's gone to number one. It's been nominated for Album of the Year in America on the Grammys. We've had sold out tours and it wasn't enough. And so it was very disheartening, and that began to erode our joy in being in a band.
Did it make a difference to you personally? Because that would have been, the time, I guess, when you went from being very anonymous to being very visible. You were the front woman in the band, you were very much the focal point of the band. When Stardom landed with a third on your doorstep, was it something you were comfortable with? Were you ready for it?
Well, in some ways I was ready for it in that, I'd been in a band with Goodbye Mr. Mackenzie for a decade, and I had learnt a lot about how the music industry works, and I wasn't coming in green. I came in pretty experienced, and I'd come from a genuine, authentic sort of rock and roll band, and we'd paid our dues, we'd really gigged hard, and so I had some perspective, so when that kind of attention was launched on me, I didn't sort of lose my mind by any stretch of the imagination. I did become very physically self-conscious, which for someone who dealt with a little bit of body dysmorphia, that sort of drove me down a sort of sad and sorry path.
Now, I remember you telling me once upon a time that the first time you met the guys, you literally flew in 2 or 3 planes and you arrived in Madison, Wisconsin, and they were standing waiting for you at the airport. And the very next day, you were in the recording studio, and they just assumed that you wrote songs and that you could write. And I mean, that first Garbage album, the self-titled record, was a very accomplished piece of work, particularly from your point of view, bearing in mind that you'd never written a song before. Was it nice, or was it the making of Shirley Manson to an extent that you were kind of thrown into the deep end, straight off the diving board?
Yeah, I mean, I would never have been a creative if it hadn't been for the fact that I got that call from my band. I mean, I just would never have had the confidence or even the belief that I could be an artist. It would never even occurred to me. I never even tried. But in this situation, I was forced to just sort of get on with it, and I did my best, and as it turned out, it was good enough.
And I mean, how long did it take you after you joined the band to feel not like the cuckoo in the nest before you felt like a really valid piece of the jigsaw and everything slotted in?
I still feel a bit like a cuckoo.
Really? Why?
Yeah. Well, because, I've taken up more and more space in the band. as we've, grown up together and our career has continued, I'm a difficult big beast to live with, so I feel like I still feel a bit like a big fat bird that's come in and sat in the nest, and the other three are getting squeezed out half the time, I'm very lucky that I'm with people who are willing to accommodate this, I don't know, as I said, a big fat bird.
Well, you're the skinniest big fat bird I know, but we'll leave that one aside. Let's play one of the tracks now, and perhaps you could kind of tee it up for us. On the first album, one of the standout songs was, it's become a garbage classic, in fact, Only Happy When It Rains. And of course, the vocal refrain in the middle of the song is, pour your misery down on me. For something that seems such a downbeat song, it's such an uplifting piece of music. Was that the idea?
Yeah, that was generally the idea. I mean, that has been a little sort of obsession of ours throughout our whole career. Is how do you use a Trojan horse to infiltrate people's consciousness and be basically able to manipulate the way they perceive a song and get another message through entirely. We were sort of digging at ourselves, just digging at that idea of being morose can be immensely satisfying and comforting.
My special guest in the programme tonight is Shirley Manson from Garbage. And like me, Shirley, you're a huge music fan. So in your teenage years when you were discovering, rock music for the first time, who were the musicians and performers, both male and female, that caught your attention? And why were they catching your attention?
Well, Susie and the Banshees, you were one of the first bands that I can really remember being blown away by. When I saw Susie and the Banshees for the first time on Top of the Pops, I was obsessed. And to be honest, I've remained obsessed ever since. It's always been a touchstone for me in everything I do. And I was obsessed with David Bowie, again for similar reasons. I just found him really intriguing, ambiguous. His masculinity to me was not like a conforming male, which I find really intriguing. And of course, there's the music, which is enough said. What
was the circumstances? Where did you meet him?
We were in New York at the MTV Movie Awards. I think all these awards merge into one. But we were at some award show, and he was working with a makeup artist that I had worked with called Paul Starr, sadly deceased. But Paul came through to my dressing room and he went, "David wants to meet you." And I'm like, "What?" And he takes me through to meet him in his dressing room, and we talked for a bit, and I gave him little transfers for his nails, and I don't know, it was extraordinary. I thought I was going to die of happiness, and it's like having two versions of yourself suddenly merge into one when you meet your heroes.
What have been your proudest achievements? Because you've diversified on many occasions. You've done a bit of acting, you've done various TV projects. So I would imagine in 1999, recording the James Bond theme. I mean, a girl from a council house in Edinburgh, and she's up there with Tom Jones and Matt Monro and Shirley Bassey, and you're recording The World Is Not Enough. Was that a big thrill for you? I mean, how did you get asked in the first place? How did it come about?
David Arnold, who was the film's composer, was a big fan of mine, and he initially asked me to sing vocals on a track that he had already composed for the film. And he had called me up when I was in London and asked me to come and meet him in a Starbucks around the corner from the hotel, and I ran down, met him in the Starbucks, and he was like, how do you feel about singing the next James Bond song? Because he talks like that. And I was like, oh my God. And I literally felt like sort of dizzy, like I was so shocked and so thrilled and so honoured, because I knew that was big. I mean, that's a big thing. Even now, in 2018, that's a big honour. So you can imagine back then in the 90s, it was mind-boggling. And somehow or other I managed to persuade them to incorporate the band, and so we got to record the theme, and it was an unbelievable honour, something that I appreciate more and more now that we have that in our arsenal.
Well, if nothing else, you're part of a great pub quiz question. Who are the three Scots who've sung a James Bond theme?
Well, we're part of a huge franchise. It's a historical franchise, which is to this day is an honour.
You live and work in Los Angeles, California now. That's where you've kind of relocated to. Does that influence how you live and how you work?
Yeah, probably. In which ways, I'm not entirely sure. Other than I'm comfortable for the first time in my career as opposed to always having to be elsewhere. You know, now I'm in my city, my adopted city, with my dog in my life, with my husband in my life, with my home in my life, you know, instead of sitting in a hotel. I did my fair dues of that. I'm not doing it again. So from that perspective, I think that does change. Like, I enjoy being in the studio more, and I just enjoy the creative process more than I ever have.
But is it important to sort of keep yourself grounded and keep that whole Scottish attitude that sort of keeps your feet in the ground?
Scotland's immensely important to me, and it's funny because I when you just said, you know, you've relocated to LA, I felt a kind of bristle because I never have really seen it that way. I always feel temporary in LA. It's my temporary home, and I love living there. And again, I'm very proud of living in Los Angeles. It's actually an incredible city in an incredible progressive state, but I can't ever eradicate my Scottishness. That's part inherent in my DNA and how I view the world, you know, and I realise that I think very differently from my American counterparts, you know, because I come from somewhere small and it's a very different perspective, and I have to come back home every 3 months. My husband is like, okay, you're being weird, we need to get you back, because I start getting really angry.
I'd never have guessed.
Yeah, and start ranting, you know, I'm in my car, go, what's this character doing? What the hell's wrong with everybody? Nobody gives a damn about anything over here. And then my husband trumps me back home, and then
you wouldn't get away with that driving along Princess Street.
I don't think you can even drive along Princess Street anymore.
I was just going to say that. You can't unless you're on the trams shouting and screaming at somebody. You wouldn't get away with that behaviour.
Yeah. That's true.
Hang your head in shame, gal.
Indeed.
Shirley Manson, it's always an absolute thrill and a pleasure to welcome you back to Home Soil. It's great that you have guested with us. You'll have to come back the next time and come in and join us on the programme, and you can sit and pick your 10, 15 favourite songs.
I would love that.
That would be great fun. So then that's an open invitation.
Thanks, Billy Sloan. I appreciate it.
The next time you come back, we won't say anything at all about Edinburgh. We'll keep it very Glasgow-centric. You can pick your 15 favourite records and we'll have a blast.